Hola amigos de Veriku, hoy estamos hablando con Mirai Kawashima de la legendaria banda japonesa Sigh. Welcome Mirai, it is a pleasure to have you here today with us. I'm really glad you were able to meet us today.
So thank you for this interview. So it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. So yeah, let's start talking about Psy. I mean, you were formed. Your band formed what 1989, 1990. So that's a long time ago. Are
Yes.
still running strong. Glad to hear. Uh,
Uh, yes. We were formed in 1990, but in the early days we said it was 1989 because we released the demo in 1990. So if the career is too short, we thought people might not take us seriously enough. So we forged the career and said it was 1980 89, but 1990.
1990 was officially, yeah,
Yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah.
great. I mean, such a long career. I've been listening to you guys since I remember back in 2007. What was it? Your album Hangman's Hymn.
Mhm.
I remember back then. That's when I met you guys. But yeah, I mean, you already had a long career before that. Um, Now, I mean, you're gonna be releasing your new album. What is it? Next week already, right?
August 26th.
August 26th.
So yeah, in 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah. So it's coming up really, really soon, really fast. What can you tell us about this album? Yeah. What can you tell us about it?
Well, this album is quite different from our past ones. But first of all, the lineup is completely different because the drummer is Mike Heller from Raven and Fear Factory, and the guitar and the bass were taken care of by Frédéric Leclercq from Kreator, the ex Dragonforce. That was because, partly because of the pandemic. Because when I started writing the songs for this album, it was early 2020, and it was also the beginning of the pandemic. So I didn't think we would be able to go into the studio to rehearse or record the album. So I asked Mike Heller to play drums for us because I knew he had his own studio and he would be able to do everything at his own place. That was a reason, the lineup is totally different this time. And I think the album is very dark and heavy because the theme of the album is, my personal fear of getting old and fear of death. Because now I'm 52, and unfortunately, death is something totally real now. Because I have been dealing with death even from the very beginning. But when you were 20 or 30, death is, something fictional. It's like a horror movie. Of course, you could die any day, but it's very hard to believe you have to die someday when you were 20 or 30. But now, when you are over 50, unfortunately, your friends start dying. And I just lost my dad last month too.
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah, so death is a harsh reality now. So I want you to express my feeling as honestly and as straightforwardly as possible this time. So this is a very dark and heavy album, I guess.
I understand that. Oh. And I mean, of course, as you mentioned, death can happen anytime, right? But
Mm,
yeah, we start seeing it in our relatives and everything.
mm,
And yeah, sadly, that has happened to me as well. And I understand that. Um, yeah, but I mean, this way you can tell that this album is particularly personal in that sense,
mm.
right? Even though
Yes.
you always inject some of your personality to all of your music,
Mm,
there's that
mm,
extra layer there.
Yeah, it is 100% personal. And I always wonder what is the point in making an extreme metal album when you are 50, because thrash metal was born, of course, in the rock and heavy metal too, but thrash metal was strictly born as music for young people back in the 80s. And when it was born, probably nobody thought about thought somebody who is 50-year old would make an extreme metal album at all. So yeah, I always wonder, so what is the point in making an album when you are 40 or 50? But probably, this album, Shiki, is an album which only 50-year-old me can make. I don't think, I could make it when I was 20 or 30 or even 40. So probably this is an answer to my own question, I guess.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it because you couldn't have written it earlier. And even though you say that, I mean, most of my, I don't know, the bands that I listen to, they're people around your age. And even there's some about around my age and everything. But we always see this generational change in all music, right?
Yeah, yes.
So speaking of this, Shiki will be your 12th album, right? The full length album, at least. So Sigh has been a part of the scene since the 90s. What are the main differences that you see in the scene today compared to, I don't know, 30 years ago?
Well, I don't know. Probably the digital technology is the biggest difference. Now you have the internet, now you have the Pro Tools, so the way of the recording changed a lot. And then now, all the people are flooded with too much information now. Because when we started the band, or when I grew up in the 80s, there was no way to watch the live video from the underground bands from Europe or from the US. But now you can listen to any music from any band. You can watch anything on YouTube. That is a great thing in one hand. But on the other hand, I think, some kind of fantasies were lost. Because, when I was a teenager in the 80s, even if you heard the rumors about the band named Death, there was no way to, actually listen to their music unless they released an album or anything. There was no way to find their demo when you lived in Japan. So there was a fantasy about, imagining, what kind of music they were playing and like that. But yeah, it's now everything is very, very convenient, but at the same time, some kind of fantasy are lost. So I think that is the biggest difference, I guess.
That's interesting, and as you say, I can see that fantasy getting lost also with social media because, as you said, musicians were people
Yeah.
that we never met or we didn't know about their personal life, and now we do.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I think so. I myself, the interact with fans through Instagram or Facebook, but we cannot, we were not able to imagine that when, in the 80s or 90s. So in the 80s, I read the fanzines and magazines and looked at the pictures of Venom and Celtic Frost and, Voivod, Sodom, and I thought those people were really scary and, they seemed like rock stars to me. So I never thought I would be able to meet them or talk to them. But now, things are totally different because of the social media, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's an interesting take. So let's talk about your music. Okay, your music, it is black metal, but it's also called avant-garde, right? Avant-garde black and black metal together. So even though avant-garde is not something new, right? You've been doing it for many years. There are a lot of people that actually haven't heard it before, so it's still like an obscure genre within metal. So how have you seen metalheads reacting to size, I don't know, experimentation when they see you live for the first time or whenever you see them getting into Psy?
I don't know, but first of all, I personally do not think what we are doing is avant-garde in any way because we invented nothing. All we do are done and tried before. Like, of course, we use some unusual instruments like saxophone or sitar, but saxophone was rather a basic instrument in the rock and roll from the 50s. And in the 60s, the Beatles used a lot of, strange instruments like sitar, tabla. Everything was, already done and tried 50 years ago. So what we are doing is rather, conservative. Probably, using saxophone or sitar, maybe a bit experimental or avant-garde in extreme metal scene. But if you have a bigger picture, if you look at the rock music, it is nothing new. It's rather conventional thing. So that's how I see, our music. And I don't know how people from today react to our music. Probably what we were doing was surprising to some metal fans in the 90s, but probably now people know we do something unusual in heavy metal scene. So it's not something surprising anymore, I guess. I don't know, but
Yeah, and yeah, I get you, and I understand that. Yeah, it's been done, it's been tried,
yeah.
but it's still extreme metal. Is still not like a popular
Mm,
genre, and even less when you start experimenting with it, right?
mm,
So the label Avant-Garde, right? That's a label that has been categorized for Psy
mm,
as
mm,
well as many other bands.
mm.
Uh, what do you think of this label? And do you think that it makes it somehow easier or more difficult for you when it comes to composing or when it comes to being included in tours?
Well, I don't know. As far as composing, I don't care. I just the top priority is writing the good songs. It's just a very conventional cliche, but of course, writing experimental stuff is not a purpose. Either. Just I just want to express my feeling, and I just want to write the good songs. That's the only purpose that I write, music, and I don't know tours. Maybe I don't know. It's but it may be difficult for the promoters or the tour agent. But as far as we go, I don't care. And I because I'm open. I will be touring with anybody, even if they are not avant-garde at all. If they are death metal, or if they are thrash metal, it doesn't matter. If it's a if they are great bands, we are happy to tour with for sure.
Yeah, excellent. And I agree that I actually like when tours or festivals have that variety, right? You're not
Mm,
just going to listen to bands that sound
mm,
similar to each other
mm,
all the time. So that's good. You were talking about composition, right? Basically,
mm,
you don't think about experimenting. You just want to
mm,
basically express
mm.
your feelings or whatever you're thinking. But what inspires you or what influences you nowadays?
Well, as far as Shiki goes, the as I said, my fear of death was the only source. That was the only
The only.
only inspiration on Shiki's music. So I didn't have to try hard. Well, I didn't have to struggle at all this time because all I had to do was just to let out my inner feelings because I was totally full of fear of death when I was writing those songs a few years ago. So it was a very, rather an easy process this time.
I understand. So, I mean, getting all that personal feelings
Yeah.
out there, it can be uneasy. But at the same
Mm,
time, you're sharing something with other people that may be feeling a similar thing that you are. How do you feel when a fan comes to you and tells you that basically your songs inspire them or your songs they relate to them?
uh,
Has that
yeah, yeah,
happened to you?
yeah, yeah. Of course, some fans tell me so, and it's an honor. Usually, basically, the Shiki is as I said, it's 100% personal album, and the older songs are more or less personal too. But yeah, it's great if my songs affect some fans in any way or another. That's a great thing as a musician, as a artist, I guess.
That's interesting. That's great. How did you feel returning to the stage? I know you played, what was it, a brutal assault, right?
Oh yeah, but actually, the, this was the first concert in 2.5 years. So the last one was early 2020. So it's been 2.5 years. But to be honest, time flies. So when
Yeah.
you are over 50, 2 years is just 1 week or something. So I didn't feel any gap or anything at all. I just thought time flies.
Yeah, and times flies, and next month you're going to be playing in Mexico, correct? In
Yes.
Leon, Mexico, at the Candelabrum Metal Fest. Uh,
Yes.
are you excited to play Mexico? Have you
Oh
played?
yes. Of
Have you played Mexico before? I couldn't find any.
no.
No, right? It's your first
No,
time.
so yes, I've never been there personally either. So this is completely the first time to be there. So I'm really, really looking forward to it because I hear the Mexican metal fans are very enthusiastic and crazy and energetic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot because and I also personally I've been a huge fan of lucha libre things, the pro wrestling, and
Yeah.
I love the Mexican foods too. So I cannot wait to finally come to Mexico in 2 weeks.
That's great. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a great time. And
Really hope
yes,
so.
Mexican fans, Mexican metal fans particularly, are like none other place in the world. So
Mm.
that's gonna be interesting. So tell us a little bit more about Shiki. What can we
Mm.
expect besides you already told us lyrically, but musically, something from this new album that we may not have heard before from
Well,
Sai?
yeah, because Shiki is a very Japanese album in every point of view. The artwork is very Japanese, the lyrics are 100% in Japanese, and music is very Japanese too because I used a lot of Japanese traditional instruments. I played all of them myself. So I think probably that is the very new insides music because as I said, I wanted to express my fear of death as honestly as possible. So I had to use my own language. I had to use my mother tongue to make it achieve it. And the theme is very Japanese too, and the lyrics are very Japanese too. So and then naturally music had to be very Japanese too. So I think people feel a lot of exotic and Asian feel in it, I guess.
That's great, and I'm really excited to
Mm,
listen to it. It's coming up on the 25th, correct?
mm.
Excellent. Anything else you want to share about you coming to Mexico that excites you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm really really looking forward to coming to Mexico. So I'm thinking of buying some masks of lucha libre, and I want to buy the death whistle. I think death whistle is one of the Mexican instruments, and also I want to eat a lot of tacos. I'm a huge fan of tacos, so I'm sure I'm going to have a huge fun while I'm there. So and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all those crazy metal fans at the venue. So please feel free to talk to me if you see me over there.
Perfect, will do.
Mm,
And I do really appreciate a lot to be able to talk to you today and to for you to accept this interview. And for all of our fans, they're going to be happy to hear from you and see you next
mm.
month. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Thank you for your time. So it was a big pleasure to talk with you and see you in Mexico in 2 weeks.
perfect. We'll see you here. Gracias a todos por estar con nosotros. Nos veremos pronto.